Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewing from What Culture Comics, again joined by Zoe, because we got up to something really cool over the weekend, because we were...
I don't know if you can read that.
In Thought Bubble.
We were at Thought Bubble.
One of the biggest conventions in the UK that has so many really cool guests, and yeah, we got up to some really cool stuff like
interviewing Donny Cates, we interviewed Al Ewing.
And Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey. So yeah, I hope you really enjoy the video, and yeah, that's all from us. Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from What Culture Comics, joined by the Immortal Al Ewing. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm over at Thought Bubble. I'm really enjoying the new con, the new surroundings. It's all pretty nice.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you about Thought Bubble and the UK convention scene, because I feel as though in the UK we're kind of not as sport for choice as people are in the States, and I think one of the valuable things about Thought Bubble is the fact that it brings so many comic creators like yourself right to here and outside of London as well, which is pretty great too. But yeah, usually in the UK you only have a choice of a few cons, and this is one of the few dedicated comics conventions. So how important do you think that is?
I mean, it's hard for me to be objective about Thought Bubble because it's my local convention. I've been coming here since the very first one, when it was in the basement of the town hall. I live in the north. I live near to Leeds, which is where it started off, and also just a stone's throw from here in Harrogate. So to get down here, it was literally like half an hour on the train. Despite all the flooding, which has apparently... Yeah, there's a lot of flooding up here. Yeah, our flood defenses in the north are not the best. Almost as if somebody has drained the budget year on year since 2010. I wonder who that could be.
I have no idea. I mean, I do, but But yeah, I was going to ask a little bit about your history with comics, and obviously, you, like many other British writers who then went on to join Marvel, kind of got you started 2000 AD doing loads of Judge Dredd stuff. What is it kind of like? What was it like when you finally got to go from 2000 AD and actually go into Marvel? And you had Loki and stuff, but yeah, how was that kind of transition?
I mean, the thing I noticed really more than anything else was the amount of space I had to play with, because when you're working for 2000 AD, you've got your 5-page episode, and that starts off with a kind of resolution of the previous cliffhanger. You get a little bit of plot, and then you're into the next cliffhanger. So you've got very little room to play with. So you learn density, you learn economy, you learn pacing. And to bring all of those lessons to the American market, suddenly you're just spoiled for... you get 20 whole pages at a time, which is just an immense amount. And basically, so there was that, and also working for Marvel, I finally had a chance to try the Marvel method, which I don't know if people know about, but basically what that is you sort of write down the plot, page by page, maybe sort of like indicating where panel breaks could happen, but leaving a lot to the artist to do, and then you go back into it after the art has been done and sort of write down all the dialogue and sort of work out what people are saying in the balloons and everything. And I did that a couple of times. Now I do a sort of full script, but then I'll always have a massive tinker with the dialogue when the art comes in, and like move things about and like redo bits of dialogue and give everything a big polish. So that's a freedom. We didn't have that freedom at 2000 AD because, again, it's a weekly comic. The pace of it, once the script is done, it's done. You don't really see the art until it goes to print, until it's in. You get a copy through the door, and you see how your story came out. Whereas with Marvel, you're sort of presented with all the details at every stage. So that's because you have a little more time, because everything's monthly. So, again, the kind of luxury of that was a wonderful thing to be suddenly presented with. So, yeah,
Cool. Yeah. Also, in what culture at the moment we're doing big end of decade lists. It's kind of a big daunting task because you realise that 2010 was in fact 9 years ago, and that 9 years is a heck of a passage of time. And for the past I want to say kind of 4 years, you've really kind of exploded at Marvel. I feel you had Loki, and then you had all the Avengers stuff that you were doing, and now you're kind of doing Immortal Hulk, which is one of my favourite books of the year. And what is it kind of like being at the obviously Marvel Comics 1000 as well? What's it kind of like being at the center of the Marvel Universe and guiding that mythos in a way? It must be a heck of a daunting task, but also really rewarding at the same time.
Well, I don't really feel like I'm at the center. I feel like I'm kind of off behind the scenes, behind the curtain, just sort of, pulling levers as I feel like it. Because I'm not doing like Spider-Man, I'm not doing the FF, I'm not doing Thor, I'm not doing any of like the big heroes. I'm doing the Hulk, who is by his very nature outside of things, the outsider. So, I'm writing the book about the perennial outsider of the Marvel Universe, and so I feel like from that position, like outside everything, I can just do things like in the background, and that's sort of had a cumulative effect, really. I've got to sort of really change the cosmology of things, like over time while nobody was looking. So yeah, it's weird. I guess on the one hand, I feel like I do have an amount of power. People let me get away with stuff. People let me do things. Doing like Marvel 1000 and Incoming, which is at the end of, it's coming out at the end of the year. There've been adverts for that. I had a big hand in structuring that and basically sort of plotting that out a little bit. I think doing those things has given me a certain amount of leeway to have a bit of fun, but at the same time, I'm still sort of outside of things. I'm still happiest as sort of the outsider, the X Factor, kind of off in the corner, just like chucking bombs from my position of like outside the circle. And I think that probably comes with writing the Hulk. I think that's probably my job as long as I'm writing the Hulk, is to just do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was going to say, actually, because I've never really been a massive Hulk reader, and weirdly, I kind of had all my knowledge of the Hulk came from, I don't know if you remember the 90s cartoon that used to be on Fox Kids occasionally, and the image that presented of the Hulk kind of did have those horror elements in the background, but they were never as readily apparent as I felt when I kind of later discovered the Stan Lee Kirby comics, where I felt as though the horror elements were very much kind of, the guiding principle of the character. In restoring the Hulk to being almost like a horror icon, how was that process for you? Because I reading the Immortal Hulk, I think there's a brilliant, gorgeous 2 double-page spread, I think in the first issue by Joe Bennett, where you have him staring down at the gas station mugger, and then it flips again, and he's this huge, monstrous beast. And if that doesn't intimate what the series is about, what does? So kind of, what was it like restoring the Hulk to that kind of classic dichotomy that Lee and Kirby initially envisioned?
I mean, that particular moment, we had 30 pages to play with, or we wouldn't have done it. But that was, I feel like that was just kind of the continuation of like an old tradition of putting 2 double spreads together. And, we've seen it from Steranko, we've seen it from Kirby. Recently, it's something Tom King's done over at DC. In fact, that was I was looking at a pair of double-page spreads from him, and I was thinking, I remember looking at that and thinking, that's really audacious. And what if that was a Zoom? So, yeah, I admit I'm standing on the shoulders of many, many giants with that particular moment. In terms of bringing the Hulk back to his horror roots, I am very influenced by those first 6 issues, which is where you have Stan Lee, you have Jack Kirby, you have Steve Ditko's there as well, doing wonderful inks on the 2nd issue, and he does all of the 6th issue, the art on that. And it really does feel like a whole bunch of people trying to get a handle on this thing that they've created that is evading their grasp. It's like not easily tied down. It's not easily placed into a box. All the other Marvel heroes, Spider-Man, you pretty much immediately know what he's about. The Fantastic Four, very quickly, they've solidified into a kind of Yeah, the family, the squabbles sort of died. The viciousness of the squabbles that the Fantastic Four have, that dies down very fast. By the end of the first year, they're very much solidified. Now, I think that's true of most Marvel heroes. The Hulk, it takes years before he's even slightly in a place where you know what a Hulk story will look like. And even then, he's constantly getting more intelligent, less intelligent. It's like, but those first 6 issues especially, every single issue, every half an issue, he's flipping. Something new is happening. They're changing the status quo. They're changing the status quo again. It's like, and the thing is, that's baked into in the same way that like power and responsibility is baked into, baked into Spider-Man, and we have to be the first. It's sort of baked into the Fantastic Four, and like in Iron Man, that very primal thing of him is like he's kept alive by the armor. That's like very, and even now, you read an Iron Man comic, and that's still there. That basic psychological thing. It's the armor that's keeping him going. It's right there. With the Hulk, the thing that is baked in from the start is this chaotic element, and he doesn't fit. He's not just the outsider to the Marvel Universe. He's outside like normal narrative structure. He's impossible to pin down. He's like a villain for a while. He becomes like the Avengers' first villain, like an issue after. It's like literally there's Loki, there's like the Space Phantom, and then it's the Hulk. And the Hulk was on the team a minute ago. The opening of Avengers 2 is Thor being unable to cope with the Hulk because he's not wearing any clothes. And like he's got 3, and like look down at the Hulk's feet, he's got 3 toes out of nowhere, which he never has again. It's like he's just constantly mutating, he's constantly changing. So yeah, to bring this long ramble back to like the point and the question, that's kind of what the Immortal Hulk is about. It's about what the Hulk is in relation to the Marvel Universe, and yeah, it's this horror thing. It's this sort of dark part of it, this horrific part of it, this kind of, this weird monster story that somehow forced its way in early on. I believe it was the second Marvel hero after the Fantastic Four. And like, you start getting adverts for Spider-Man in issues of the Hulk, but it's like, people think of Spider-Man as like, FF and Spider. No, it's the FF and the Hulk. They're the 2 poles, the 2 dichotomies. Which is why, like, recently I really started thinking about, like, cosmic rays and gamma rays and how they, fit together. But basically, yeah, he's the outsider. He's the chaos creature. He's the sort of, the Marvel Universe started off with the ordered principle of the Fantastic Four, and then immediately creates this devil from out of the id, who, like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, between them, cannot get a handle on whatsoever. They eventually have to, like, give up on him and, like, cast him into the wilderness. That's just incredibly powerful to me from, like, this meta standpoint, To get a little bit Grant Morrison, yeah, this is... The Hulk is almost Marvel Comics' original sin, It's like... And I get to write him, so great.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting to me because I'm actually really bad in trade waiting for the Immortal Hulk. I read the first hardcover because a Travelling Man do a local book club in Newcastle that I attend, and it was that book for last month, so I've only just managed to get caught up. But from the future solicitations for the Immortal Hulk, it looks as though you're constantly, not necessarily, changing the core principle of the series, but you're certainly trying different avenues. So I'm fairly certain there are future solicitations where Hulk's going up against some kaiju-esque monsters as well. So what's it kind of like, and obviously the current arc, I believe, is very cosmic in nature. Yeah. So what's it kind of like when you get the opportunity to put the character who many associate, in the age of the MCU as being an Avenger in New York doing this, what's it kind of like actually pushing him out of his boundaries almost?
I mean, this is kind of comics Hulk, so he's not the Mark Ruffalo guy. The Mark Ruffalo guy, in comparison, is very lovely, and I was very happy seeing in Endgame that arc. I felt like that was a good arc for the movie Hulk. I'm going to be interested in seeing where that goes. But we can't be beholden to that, because that's sort of it's almost robbing the Hulk of his power in comics. In terms of the constant changing thing, probably we're getting back to like 2000 AD. I'm very conscious that I don't want to stagnate. I don't want to get static. So we've always got to like move on and make it a little bigger and make it a little more interesting. And like, you know, in the current arc, we're kind of going to see, we've sort of seen the limits of like a military and a Black Ops response to the Hulk. We're sort of going to try and see like other ways the human world can attack the Hulk. And we're going to see what happens when the Hulk is attacked with capitalism. And when the Hulk is kind of consumed and packaged and sold back to himself. And, you know, how that works and how that can be. And, you know, and we're doing it in a way that lets us use giant monsters and, like, big fights and all the cool stuff that people want to see. But, you know, there's a brain behind there as well. In terms of bringing in things like the giant monsters, the Abomination, I should say a lot comes from Joe. In that the Abomination was in the book because he wanted to draw the Abomination. And then there was a back and forth of like, yeah, and it started with him emailing me saying, I'd really like to draw the Abomination. I was like, okay, well, how about, I want to do something with Rick Jones, so let's make Rick Jones the new Abomination. Do you want to design that? And he comes back with a design that just looks horrific. You know, it's got the face things. Okay, that's designed, so I write that in. And then, you know, suddenly we're into this. So it's quite, and it's the same with the giant monsters. I think he really wanted to, he was saying it started off with him saying, I really want to draw some of the giant Kirby monsters. And I was like, okay, well, we can put them in here at this point. After we've done the big cosmic thing, there's room for them here. And that can be part of the business with the Minotaur. So he goes away, and he comes back with things. They're not the Kirby monsters. They're his own designs. They're amazing. They've all got names. So I go away, and I'm like thinking, okay, well, I want at least one Kirby monster, so, you know. And like I say, you know, not to spoil things on a video, but people who have been checking out the solicitations will know which Kirby monster I'm talking about, who is back. Perhaps the most obvious one to go up against the Hulk again. So yeah, and we're having that. We're having the big sort of Cloverfield, you know. Apologies. We're having the big Cloverfield thing, the big kaiju fight, and we're also having the return of a Kirby monster. So yeah, but all of this kind of stems from. I have an idea of where it's going and where it's ending and the steps along the way. But a lot of the time, you know, Joe will suggest things and I'll work them in. And then he'll design things. Or I'll want to do things like turning Betty into Harpy again. That was kind of something I wanted to do because I'd come across the old Harpy who had these giant bird feet and she looks just so strange. And I missed the days when people would Hulk out and they wouldn't turn into Hulks. They'd turn into, like, just weird things that...
Sasquatch almost, yeah.
Yeah, Sasquatch, Harpy. I'm trying to think of other weird gamma... I mean, Doc Samson is, like, a gamma weirdo in his own right. He's just very lucky. And I feel like in more recent years, everybody just gets big muscles and, you know... Their skin turns a primary color and they kind of Hulk out. Yeah. And it's like, I wanted to get back to the weirdness. And, you know, I basically communicated this to Joe and he did the most amazing Harpy design. And, again, that influences how I write her. So there's a lot of back and forth and kind of, it is very much a team effort with the whole team. So, you know, it's not just me behind the wheel here.
That's really cool. I was going to ask, actually, because obviously, you know, you've done the Avengers, you've done the Hulk, you're now doing Valkyrie as well alongside Jason Aaron. Are there any kind of other corners of the Marvel Universe you're really desperate to explore? Obviously, I think we're getting a new side with looking into Marvel's past with Marvel Comics 1000, and then obviously you've got the event coming out next year as well. But is there anything in particular you want to hone in, like on the X-Men or something else? I don't know.
I mean, there's the trouble with a question like that is that it's sort of whose job do you want to have? I will say I do want to get back to cosmic stuff at some point. I got to sort of dabble a little bit in Hulk 25 with that whole area, but I'd like to get back to it, you know, in a more kind of really get into the mechanics of things and get into the sort of the mechanics of the Marvel Universe and kind of like get back to some of the things I was exploring with Ultimates before that ended. And so I guess that'd be that. And there's a lot of characters I could do that with. So I sort of get to answer the question without saying, "Oh, I want to turf this particular person out of their job and take it over." Yeah, but it's still wrong. But I mean, I feel like I can get into that area with a whole bunch of different characters in a whole bunch of different ways. So, so if I say that's a general area I'd like to explore, and then we'll leave any kind of, and I want to do it with Captain Ultra, then do it that way.
Sweet, yeah. I was also, this is my second to last question. Obviously, we've teased some stuff that's upcoming in the Immortal Hulk. Are there any upcoming projects that you're really, really particularly excited about? I'm going to assume that it's all of them. But if you want to tell everyone here at What Culture what's coming out in the next few months, feel free to now. Yeah,
Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out in January, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm being kind of sort of put in control of space, which is good. I get to kind of, and in real terms, I get to sort of interpolate anything that goes on in space from here on in into a larger story that I'm planning. And the nice thing about the story that I'm planning is that it can take a lot in and make it part of itself. So really, I've basically just been saying to other writers when they've been asking me about this, just like, do what you want, and I'll bring it in, and make it within there's a couple of things I want to sort of keep, not everything is on the table, but it's like, big stuff is coming. Big stuff is coming, and quite soon in 2020 as well. I believe we're probably edging close to an announcement of some kind, of something. But more than that, I don't think it'd be prudent for me to say.
It's got Rocket Raccoon in a suit, so like, why wouldn't you love this comic? But yeah, also in our final question, because we've asked everyone here today, we've asked Donny Cates, we've asked Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey this. Are you keeping up with House of X and Powers of 10 or Hickman's X-Men? I did have a question because we all are dying to know. What's the deal with Wolverine, Jean, and Cyclops? Do you have your own theory on this going on? They've got the shared bedroom in the graph. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, my opinions are obviously not those of Marvel Comics, and I certainly wouldn't pretend to speak for the company on this. It's a polycule. I think Emma's involved as well. Yeah, they're a thruple, possibly a quadruple. I think we all know it. I'm certainly, as a reader, I'm certainly thinking that. As a writer, I couldn't possibly comment.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Al. That's great. Cheers. Thank you.
So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed that interview, and please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell because it really does help us out. You can find more stuff like this at whatculture.com/comics. And yeah, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.